Well, hey there, welcome back to Cowboy Survival. Hey, if you like this video today, what I want you to do is make sure and subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, let's talk about what this video is going to be on today. We're going to talk about how to build a box, a little greenhouse box, to start your plants so that they're ready when the spring season comes to get them going, so you don't have to go to the nursery, because in a downtime, you might not be able to go to a nursery. So I've got this box that I built, and we're going to see how to build it. And what I've got rooted in here right now is some azalea cuttings. But you can use this for plants, for vegetables, for tomatoes, for cucumbers, for beans. Any kind of plants you want to start can be started in a box like this, because it'll keep them warm and growing through the winter. So let's take a look at how we build this box. So we're going to be making a 3-foot by 2-foot grow box. To do that, we're going to make a bottom half that's 3 foot by 2 feet, and we're going to make a top half that's 3 feet by 2 feet, just like it. And it's going to be hinged so that top half will open up, so we can water the plants and take care of them. So what I did, I went down to Lowe's and I purchased some 1x4 boards. So these 1x4s are right here, and I'm going to basically, these are 6 feet. Remember, my dad always taught me measure twice, cut once. So I've actually measured these, but I'll show you. I'll measure this out. It measures out to exactly 6 feet. And so I marked a line right here in the center of this board at the 3-foot mark. And I'm going to cut this board at that 3-foot mark. So I'm going to get over here. I'm going to get my saw, and I will line it up with that cut. Okay, so that's the first side of my board. I've got 2 for the bottom. Now I've got to take another one and cut it in half for the top. And now I've got my 4 pieces that are 3 feet long. Now what I'll do is I'll cut my 2-foot pieces. And once I get those cut, I'll be able to go to the next step. So we'll get my boards out, get out my pencil. We'll measure this. We're going to cut this in 2-foot pieces now, because I'm going to need these for the sides. So when I put these boards together to make my box, I want them to be together like this. The problem is that it's really going to be difficult to screw or to connect these boards here, given that they're only 1 inch thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some blocks using this 1x that I've got here, a 2x. It's a 2x2. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to create some blocks with it that I can put in the corners in order to screw through the boards into those instead of screwing the boards into each other. I'm also going to do 2 extra of these blocks, because I'm going to put them so that, and you'll see it'll help them fit. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to do an extra one. And you'll see why when we actually start constructing this. Sometimes the top will warp a little bit, and it's really helpful to have some blocks on the sides so that have some blocks on the sides so that if the top does not fit straight, it will have something to rest on. So I'm going to double measure these just to make sure each one is in fact 3 3/4 inches. Now, I didn't actually do 3 or 4 inches because, to be honest with you, the boards are actually not 4 inches wide. The boards are actually about 3 3/4 inches wide. And so you don't want to do 4-inch blocks. That wouldn't suit me very well at all. And I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. Okay, so we're going to start cutting these blocks. And these will be pretty easy to cut. So we'll just pull this down here. I'm assuming my blade is down far enough. Yeah, I think it is. So we will just start cutting these blocks. So we've got all of our sides cut and we've got all of our blocks cut. The next thing we're going to do is start putting these things together. So I don't want these screws. I don't want these screws hitting each other when I put them in the block. So if you want to think of it like this, I'm going to have this here and I'm going to have the block right here, and my wood is going. I'm going to screw this way into this block and this way into this block. Now, I don't want my screws to hit each other, so I'm going to have to put them in different places. So how am I going to do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to mark about where I think the middle of this board is. And so it'll be right about here, and then this one will be right about here. Now I have to do that because this one is offset a little bit, and so I don't want, if I put the screws here, it's going to go into the board. I don't want to do that. I want to go into the block. So now that I know about how far in to put these, and I'll put this mark here and this mark here. Now I can just sort of eyeball where I want to put these screw holes. So I'm going to put a screw hole right about 1 inch down and 3 inches down on the first board. Then I'll put a screw hole on this line about 2 inches down and about the next inch down on that line. So now what I've done is I've got my screws will be offset. So when I put them into the block, there's going to be no danger of them hitting each other. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill these holes. And this doesn't have to be particularly precise. I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill the hole for this block. Now I'm going to want the block to be flush with the top. I don't want it sticking up. This block is actually a little bit extra long. That's okay. So go back in my original hole. I'll drill a hole in that block, and I'll drill a hole in this block. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to turn it on its side 90 degrees, because there's the holes. I'm going to turn it over 90 degrees. Then I'm going to line this up with where those holes are, and I will drill 2 holes there. And I'll do 2 more. Now I'm going to do one more thing to this, and that is I am going to countersink these screws on the outside. Now I know I should be just twisting this chuck, but on my drill for some reason it doesn't want to do right. So now what I'm going to take the block away. I'm going to countersink these holes on the outside. I don't have to countersink them a lot, just a little. Because wood screws have got a conical head. And if you don't countersink, then the head will sit up on top of the board. So I've got this now, and I've done that, so I can start attaching my block. Okay, I've got my block with its holes in it. So I'm going to take the first one, and and through here. I'm going to get my screws. Now I'm going to use, as I said, I'm using these wood screws. They're 8 and 1 5/8. They're number 8 screws, 1 5/8 inches long. And I'm going to use my impact drill to drill these into these boards, and it's going to go really fast. These impact drills are really great tools. They're amazing how, so I get it through to start it. I line it up with the hole that I've already done. And now all I got to do is screw it on in there. I mean, it goes fast when you use these impact drills. So now I'm going to go right here on the end, and I'm going to line this one up. So again, I'm going to have to start my screw so that I can line it up with the other hole. I can find where that hole goes. It goes right there. And I will line that up. There we go. Boy, that went almost through the wood. Okay, so I've got my first side done. Now I've got to do is add the other sides. So you will remember that I had 3 extra blocks. So what I'm going to do with these extra blocks, I'm going to put one here in the front, one over here in this side, and one over here on this side. That way, if the top should somehow get twisted a little bit, it's got something to rest on. So I'm not going to put those extra blocks in the top piece. I'm just going to put the extra blocks in the bottom piece. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. So as I finish up the top frame, it's important to remember that you want to make the top frame exactly like you made the bottom frame, because if you don't make them exactly the same, then they're not going to fit, they're not going to match up. So I decided I'd put my blocks on the inside right at the end of my 2 short pieces, and I did that on the bottom and at the top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my screws. It just makes it easier when I drop them. So I'm going to start my screw. And now I put my second one in. So now all I've got to do is finish the last side. This will be fairly easy. I'm going to take this, and all I got to do is fit it on top like this and screw those down. Okay, so now the question is, does the top and the bottom fit together? So let's see if that's going to work like it should. The top and the bottom should fit together like 2 pieces. Then all we've got to do is put the hinge on, and we'll be done. So here's the bottom. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Here is the bottom of my frame. And this is going to be the front. This is going to be the back here. And I put these 2 on top of each other, and they fit like a glove. So I got these hinges at Lowe's. Pretty simple little hinges, nothing fancy, just a little stainless steel hinge. And I'm going to take this hinge and I'm going to do it. Now I drew a line so I knew about where to put this hinge, so I know to keep it lined up. So I'll just, that's the first screw. I put in the second screw. Get my third screw. Now what I'll do is I'll put in my screws for the other side of the hinge. Again, I'll put in, make sure that's lined up. Okay, and my hinges are on. So my upper and lower half are done. Once I have the bottom half in the ground and filled with dirt and plants, this will be covered with plastic. And then when I need to water it, all I gotta do is lift that up and close it back down. And it's with the hinges. So it's gonna be a really great grow box. The next thing I'll show you is putting the plastic on this. So we've got our box built. And the next step is to stretch plastic across the top of it. The clear plastic will create a greenhouse effect. So the heat will go in, the water will evaporate, it'll fall back down, the water won't just all evaporate and the dirt won't dry out. I'll still need to lift up the lid and water it from time to time, but this will protect it, particularly also in the fall as it starts to get cooler. It'll protect it from the frost. So this is a really great tool. Now, what I did for this bag is my wife bought a new pillow for one of the guest room bedrooms, and this came in this clear Mylar bag. And so rather than go buy 20 square feet of Mylar or something, I just went ahead, I'm gonna use this bag. It's got a little writing on it, but that's gonna be okay. I'm going to stretch it. It barely is wide enough to fit the box. It's plenty long because I cut the bag open. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also extend it down a little bit on the ends so that I can fold it under on the ends. I won't be able to do that on the sides, but I can do it on the ends. And so I'm going to try to center this. I'm going to use a staple gun to staple this plastic on here, and this will allow me to stretch this plastic and to create that greenhouse effect. The first thing I'm going to do is get it centered and where I want it down here on the end. I've got actually plenty of space on the end for this thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to staple first these ends, then I'm going to staple the other end so that I make sure that it's on straight. And it looks pretty straight, but I just want to make sure, because if it's on crooked, because this is kind of narrow, if it's on crooked, I'll get down to that end and it won't fit right. So I'm going to do a test staple on each one of these. And then I'll pull this one tight, and I'll do it here as well. Now what I'll do is I'll pull it tight over here to make sure that it stays nice and straight, and I think it will. I'm going to also staple it, since it does overhang just a little. I'll also staple it along the front. So I'll staple this down here. And I'm going to staple it over here as well. Try to get this somewhere. It doesn't have to be really tight, just has to be a little tight. And now what I'll do, I'll start stapling it and tightening it down the side. So I'll staple it every few inches. Okay, so I've placed my box here in the yard. You want to find a relatively flat spot. It's not going to be perfectly flat. Because the reason you want it flat is because otherwise it's going to create a lot of gaps in your box, underneath your box, for critters to get in and also for your dirt to leak out. So I'm going to put in here a mix of topsoil and potting mix. Now I'm growing azalea cuttings, but you can use this box for anything from cuttings like azaleas to sprouting bulbs to sprouting seeds for your vegetables. This would be a great box for starting your seeds in the springtime, getting your little seedlings growing up for whatever it's going to be, whether it's tomato plants or cucumbers or beans or whatever. You could start them in a box like this. And so let's go ahead and get our dirt in here, and we're going to open our bag. And you can do the math on how much dirt you need to put in this, but it needs to be enough to fill the bottom half of the box. There's my topsoil, and I'm going to just put my knees on this. It's a little wet because it was wet over there at Lowe's, I guess. And I'm going to spread this out, but I'm also going to mix in a lot of this potting soil with this to get this thing filled out. So I have this potting soil. We're going to mix it in here. This material is a lot different than the topsoil is. And when I mix it, it's going to create a real nice environment for the baby plants to grow and develop. So I'll just start mixing this up. I don't have to dig out underneath this box at all. So I've got my black cow manure. I'm going to take my black cow manure and we're going to open this up and we'll spread some of this into this box as well. This manure is really great stuff if you're trying to plant vegetables or plants or anything you want to grow really nice. Manure is a great nutrient-rich kind of soil that you can put. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. Let's see how that does. That might be enough. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cuttings from some azaleas and we're going to plant them in here. Now the important thing to remember is that, I'm going to put a little more back here in this corner, is that you don't want to just take the cuttings and stick them straight in. You want to help them to grow. So we're going to have some material that's a hormone-based product you can get at Lowe's or any garden center. And this stuff will help your plants to grow. You'll need to come in here from time to time and weed, I imagine. But so there's our box. It's now ready for our plants. Go on to the next step. But what we're going to do is take cuttings off this evergreen azalea. Now there's a difference between evergreen azaleas and deciduous azaleas. Deciduous are the ones that lose their leaves during the winter. An evergreen will stay green all year long. So I'm going to take the evergreen, they root better. And so I'm going to take these cuttings off of this evergreen azalea. And I'm going to take several cuttings and then we're going to take these and we're going to go root them. So let's just take a few just to show you how it's done. And I'm going to avoid the ones with spider webs on them. You'll never even notice, this bush will never even notice these are gone. Okay, so I've got my cutting, and what I'm going to do is strip off about half of the leaves. So I'm just going to take those and strip those off, just like this. Now I've got that, and I'm going to cut just a little bit of the bottom off, not much. I'm going to take off another leaf or two. And then I'm going to cut off probably maybe the bottom ½ inch of this. I'm just going to cut it off at a little angle. Now what I've done with this cutting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to drop it in a bucket of water. And I'll show you that in a moment, and I'm going to clean these off. So let me go ahead and get all of these done. So the next step is going to be to wash these things really well. Just get all the bugs and anything that might be on them off of them. It also helps them, moistens them up a little bit. It softens up the stem a little bit and help the stem to absorb the hormone powder that I'm going to put them in. So this is a hormone powder. You can get it at any local gardening store. This is called Garden Safe Take Root. Okay, I don't know if you can see the garden safe stick. I got this down at Lowe's. You can get, there's another one called Root Tone that you can get. This one my dad has used for many, many years. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my azalea cuttings and I'm simply going to dip them in this. And the best way to do it, I'm going to gather these out of my bucket, and I've got them here. And they're all wet. I've got each one. And there's one more. So I'm just going to hold them all together, and you can do them one at a time. I don't know that it really matters. Maybe it does, but I'm going to just do them all together. And I'm just going to dip them directly in my hormone powder and just get hormone powder on these root stems really, really well. So you see these now have that hormone powder on them. You can probably see that. I'm going to get out of the, you can see they've got, now what I'm going to do next is we're going to plant these in my planting box. I've got my cuttings. My cuttings are right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant these cuttings and I'm going to put them in this area right here. Now I'm going to use a little Phillips head screwdriver. The only purpose of this is to do a little hole so I'm not pushing them directly in. As I showed you before, this is a mix of topsoil and fertilizer and planting soil or planting mix, potting mix. So I'm just going to take these and I'm going to put these in the soil. I'll get a little hole. And I'll put that one in there just like that and tamp it down just a little bit. I'll do one for each one of these. And 2 or 3 inches apart. They don't have to be too far apart. They can be close together actually, but I think it's easier to get them out at the end if they're kind of, you know, a couple inches apart. I will actually leave these in here for about 11 months. And when I come back next summer, they should be just fine. They should be all rooted. And I'll have nice little plants that I can take out and pot and begin growing larger azaleas. And then what I'm going to do, because it's been really, really hot, I'm going to take that water that I used and I'm going to pour it in here to make this just a little bit moister. Now, because of the plastic that's on this, of course, the water comes up, it evaporates, it hits the plastic, it drips back down. So this stays pretty moist. I'm going to add a little water to it. Well, there you go. A small grow box for starting your plants. This is great for starting, as I said, cuttings from azaleas, small vegetable plants, flowers, whatever you need to start growing. You can start in a box like this very early, even before the weather gets warm. You can scale this box up to a much larger size. You just need a lot more dirt to go in it. So this is a great survival hack. Everyone needs to know how to build a box like this and how to grow and start your plants so you can have plenty of plants planted and food grown. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Remember what we always say. Stay strong, stay prepared, have a blessed day. We'll see you real soon on Cowboy Survival.